Like and subscribe now, or you're gonna have bad luck this week.
We have all probably seen crazy police chases in movies, but this list will prove to you that real-life cops chasing criminals are just as insane as it's shown in the movies, with criminals coming up with incredibly crazy ways to dodge the cops. In this video, we will show you that the 10 most insane police chases of all time. Number 1 will blow your mind away, so stay until the end. Number 10. Okay, so what really makes this chase part of this list is the fact that not only are the cops chasing down a literal school bus, but its driver is a student at the very school from which the bus was stolen from. This juvenile driver was barely old enough to be behind the steering wheel, let alone handling a 26-passenger bus. Considering that he was already bound to be charged, the young driver decided to swerve all over the road, and at one point also headed towards the oncoming traffic. However, rather than colliding with the traffic on the other side of the road, our young bus thief decided to go for a different target as he crashed into a police-mobile itself. Thankfully, nobody was injured at this crash, and the kid was apprehended by the police shortly afterwards. If this kid wants to ever steal a car, let's just hope that he looks for a game like GTA to fulfill his thrills and fantasies rather than actually doing it in real life. Number 9. As far as police chases go, it's not too uncommon to see a biker who isn't really keen on following traffic rules and speed limits enforced on the highways. For this driver though, he wanted to do something a little more than just going fast as he evaded police custody, and rather than keeping his eyes on the road in an attempt to truly escape the cops as most would likely do, he was more interested in showing off his biker stunts by standing with his feet on the seat and performing other feats such as that. I mean, if he was going to jail anyway, he might as well make it the ride worth talking about once he gets put behind bars. The crazy part is that the culprit in question actually thought it was strange that the police tried to kick him off his bike during his joyride. Regardless of if he agreed to it or not, the guy was inevitably caught and promptly paid the price for his reckless antics. Fortunately, nobody was hurt, and the culprit apologized to his 2 daughters before getting booked for his crimes. Number 8. Imagine you're on a family road trip. You stop for a place to relax for a bit when some crazy lady hops into your RV and drives away with it. To make the matters worse, the lady also brought her 2 furry friends with her while she keeps for a dangerous joyride, and it gets really scary when one of the dogs decides to jump out of the car because he was too fed up with a rough drive. Thankfully, the pup didn't hurt himself much and limped away, but this woman wasn't already in enough trouble with the police. Considering her dog jumped out like that, we'd sure she'd be getting criticism from Peter as well. She just goes on while ramming other vehicles, leaving a trail of destruction before one crash makes her chase come to a screeching halt. The only serious injury was to the pup that jumped away, who had to wear casts on his front and back legs until making a recovery. Number 7. If you had ever tried to outpace and escape the police, I'd imagine that some of us would do simply anything to get away, whether that is driving along the same highway at high speeds for hours and hours, or even doing something as insane as boarding a moving train, as this guy here does. At the end of the day, you've got to commend this guy's determination of escaping away. I mean, who would say that they have chased down a moving train onto bound into an attempt to evade the cops, as this man sneaks aboard the scrap train and rides before ditching it to take off on foot. While the other 2 folks on the back of his car had already been apprehended by that point, while this guy just kept on running until he was inevitably caught by the police later that day. Obviously, none of us can condone his actions. We can respect the effort this guy put in by trying to escape. Number 6. If one thing we've all done while playing the GTA series, it's spinning down and crashing during a police chase. Naturally, the main vehicles following you are the police cruisers, and while some of us just grab another pedestrian car, the rest of us run straight for a cop's car instead. So when this guy totaled the first vehicle he stole, the next closest car happened to be the very officers who were meant to be apprehending him. Somehow, he managed to evade the cops and even managed to take one of their cruisers. But that's not even the worst part. The smart guy was initially even able to go unnoticed by another officer that was coming to help apprehend him. I mean, we can't blame him, because how could you even expect his peers to let the suspect get away in one of their own cars? The chase went on for like another 20 minutes before the crook was finally arrested. Number 5. The typical signs of a police chase are cars moving rapidly at very high speeds, while occasionally also causing a bit of havoc and destruction in their attempts to evade custody. In this case though, we're veering off a bit of a different path. Rather than stepping down on the gas as hard as he could, the driver opted to do the exact opposite. Have you ever heard the song Slow Ride? Well, this driver took the lyrics to a whole new level by driving this slow, cultivating a crowd, and having a celebrity moment by waving to those who were behind him on the road. While this guy lived it up, he got those police trailing at a similar speed until eventually the driver decides to kick it into high gear. The police had had enough, and one of the police SWAT cars performed a pit maneuver and rammed the back of the suspect's car, causing it to slam into a concrete median. It was then found that the car was full of methamphetamines, and the driver was also under the influence of it. Number 4. So far in this list, we've seen people trying to escape the cops on trains, RVs, and even police cruisers. But this one's a bit different, as this guy here tries to escape on his longboard. Before getting on his skateboard, the man tried to escape in a car he'd previously stolen, but after crashing into another vehicle, got out of the car, brought out his skateboard and started riding it, and tried to make his own version of the Great Escape. With that in mind though, if I were this guy, I'd probably thrown the skateboard away and ran as fast as I could to save my life. And then again, regardless of what method he used, there was no escaping the long arm of the law. Next time he attempts to evade the police, I hope he brings something a little faster than a longboard as a backup plan. Number 3. In most police chases, people start in a car but end up running on foot. But this chase begins on foot, as the criminal was originally caught and was being treated on a stretcher near an ambulance. Before he could be processed and cuffed, he suddenly jumped up and took the emergency vehicle for a spin. The police shot him thrice as he reversed and hit 2 officers in uniform. For almost 20 minutes, he was chased down across Frankfurt and Cottman Avenues and side streets across the boulevard. This tow truck driver became a hero as he helped the police get a hold of this guy trying to escape in the ambulance by popping the ambulance's front right tire, and a spike strip finished the job, making it easy for the police to get the criminal back in custody. Number 2. Alright, if you can't tell by now, these chases come in all shapes and sizes, but this very last person you'd ever expect to see behind the wheel, well, are little kids. In this case, this 7-year-old, who had his very first encounter with the law on a bright Sunday morning. While you can't tell if this is a kid driving alone, it gets a lot easier to see when he pulls up to his family's driveway. The kid just ran inside to tell his dad that the cops are outside, without giving him literally any context, so when the officer went ahead and told the father what his son had been up to, he was just confused as any of us probably would be in that situation. And in all fairness to the kid, we must admit that he was a pretty good driver for a 7-year-old child. Number 1. Finally coming to our number 1 spot, we're taking a look across the pond to a pursuit that happened in London, England. Conveniently, if you're trying to escape police custody, your choice of vehicle would be something small and fast, right? Well, for this intoxicated driver, he opted for something with a little more destructive power to go about on his rampage. Like we mentioned, the driver was on drugs, so he had no regard for anyone else on the road and rammed whatever came his way, not even leaving the very cops that were chasing him. He went on to hit several other police cruisers along his trail of car destruction. Of course, the driver was inevitably caught by the police, but not before he caused plenty of damage to all those police cars who decided to get in the way of his 12-ton dump truck of destruction. Thankfully, that was the majority of the damage caused by this insane chase, and fortunately, no one was seriously injured. Which one of these chases fascinated you the most? Let us know in the comments, and if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel.